Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna and welcome to all the devotees online. Thank you very much for your kind presence as we continue to associate with Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3, Chapter 8, verses 1 to 14, manifestations of Brahma from Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurummilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Taparakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagra Jatam Bhagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishwakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Manjakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavenebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo 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 Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesa Sunyavadi Pastyatare Starine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Sarvashastra Piyusha Sarva Vedeka Satpala Sarva Siddhatna Ratnadya Sarva Lokai Triprada Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabhu Kaligundo Didaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita O Srimad Bhagavatam O nectar churned from the ocean of all Vedic scriptures O most prominent transfer fruit of all the Vedas you are enriched with jewels of all spiritual philosophic conclusions O you grant spiritual vision to all people of the world O light breath of the Vaishnava devotees O Lord, you are the sun which has arisen to dispel the darkness of Kali Yuga. You are actually Lord Krishna who has returned amongst us. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshasharayate Sarvada Sarva Sevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namastute. O Srimad Bhagavatam, offer respectful obeisance to you. By reading you, one attains transcendental bliss. Where your syllables rain pure love upon the reader. You are always to be served by everyone for your incarnation of Lord Krishna. Madekabando Matsangi Madguru Manmahadana Manishtaraka Madbhagya Madananda Namastute. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O my only friend, O my companion, O my teacher, O my great wealth, O my deliverer, O my good fortune, O my bliss, I offer respectful obeisance to you. Asadu Sadu Tadayina Tini Chochataraka Hanam Chakadachin Mam Premna Ritkatayospura. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O give us saintliness to unsaintly, O uplifter the very fallen. Please do not ever leave me. Please become manifest. Mahatma Troda, accompany pure love of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Janmadyasya Yatonvayaritaratascharte Swabhignaswara Tene Brahma Hidayadi Kavaye Muyanti Yatsuraya Tejo Vari Mridam Yatha Vinimayo Yatrati Sargom Mrisha Damna Swena Sadani Rastakokam Satyam Param Dhimahi. O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, O pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisance unto you. I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primal cause of all causes of creation, sustenance, and destruction of manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations. And is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, as one is bewildered by illusory representation of water seen in fire, land seen on water. Only because of him, the material universe is temporarily manifested by direction of the three modes of nature appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna, who is eternally existent and transcendental abode, which is forever free from illusory representation of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Prayana Paisha Sabya Kalabasmin Yuge Jana Manda Sumanda Mateo Manda Bhagyo Padrata. O learned one, in this age of Kali, many but short lives are quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. Narayana Namaskritya Narachevam Naratamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jai Mudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisance to the person of Godhead Narayan, and to Narayan Narayan, the supreme human being, and the Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and and Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Savai Pumsa Parodharmo Yato Bhakti Radokshache Adokshaje Ahitukiya Pratihata Yet Masuprasidati supreme occupation, dharma of all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendental Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the soul. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayatchusa Vairagyam Jnanam Chayad Ayutukam. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of God, Shri Krishna, one immediately acquires causes knowledge and detachment from the world. Vedanti tattvavidas tattvam yachknanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti sabhyate. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth, called as non-dual substance Brahman Paramatma Bhagavan. Shri Shri Shoshadanasya Vasudeva Kataruchi Syan Mahatsevaya Vipra Punya Tirtha Nishevana. O twice born sages, by serving those devotees completely free from all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. Shuranutam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridantastoya Badrani Vidunoti Suritatam. Shri Krishna, the person of Godhead, who is Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment. From the heart of the devotee is developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtues and properly heard and chanted. Nasta Prasha Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamasloker Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki. By regular attendance in class in the Bhagavatam and by rendering our service to the pure devotees, all that is troubled into the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the person of God who is praised. But transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. Etavan Sankhya Yoga Vyam So Dharmam Parinishtaya Janmalava Param Pumsa Ante Narayana Smriti. The highest perfection of human life achieved either by complete knowledge of matter and spirit, by practice of mystic powers, or by perfect discharge of occupational duty, is to remember personality of God at the end of it. Akama Sarvakamo Va Moksha Kamo Udariti Vrena Bhakti Yogena Yajate Purusham Param. A person who has broad intelligence, whether he be full of all material desires, without any material desires, or desiring liberation, must by all means worship the supreme whole personality of God. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are continuing Srimad Bhagavatam based on the teachings of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Hare Krishna and welcome back. Let us cover any feedback anyone has from last week's session before we continue with today's chapter. Is anything that caught your attention, any questions, any recapping, please let us know in the chat so we can continue. So we are hearing the discussion between Vidura and Maitreya Muni. Vidura has, in the last section, asked so many questions, covering a vast array of subjects, subjects that we wouldn't even think of. And all the topics that he has requested Maitreya Muni to speak on, Maitreya Muni is going to now start speaking. And therefore we find that Srimad Bhagavatam contains all these different topics. And thus it is called a spiritual encyclopedia. Shyamananda Prabhu says, we always have to check ourselves, remind ourselves Krishna is in control. We are servants many times over. No bribing, no shortcuts, etc. The tendency to be the proprietor, the controller, the enjoyer is very deep. Consider just the propensity to enjoy things in this material world is there. If you give advice and somebody doesn't follow your advice, you get upset. You want the world to move in a certain way. If it doesn't move in a certain way, you get angry or upset. These are all subtle manifestations of Abhiman, the ego that I am the center. I am the Lord of all that I survey. I'm the enjoyer, I'm the controller, I'm the proprietor. So very, very deep. And therefore, we have to constantly remind ourselves that we are not in control. Krishna is. There's this serial on YouTube about Dwarkadish Krishna. And in one episode, they have a section on Sudama. And Sudama is attacked. And he responds that he has no fear. Why there's no fear? He says, if I fear, then it's actually embarrassment on Krishna. It's an offense and embarrassment to Krishna. Why? Because that means I have no faith that Krishna can protect me. And if I know who Krishna is, if I have clear understanding and realization and faith of who Krishna is, then I cannot have fear. So that was a very wonderful point to take home. That yes, if we analyze our life, do we experience fear? Because if we experience fear, it's a sign of lack of faith, lack of surrender, lack of realization of who Krishna is. Krishna is no ordinary personality. Prahlad Maharaj had no faith. Prahlad Maharaj had no fear. Prabhupada had no fear. Why? Because they had firm faith realization of Krishna and in Krishna. That he can do anything. And yes, if he wants to kill me, who can protect me? And if he wants to protect me, who can kill me? So it's a very wonderful goal, level to try to strive for, try to achieve. And whenever we fear, whenever we're in difficulty and we experience fear, then we need to use that as an opportunity to preach to ourselves, yes, I need to pull my socks up. I need to really dive deeper. I need to really practice nicely so that I can get that firm faith, so that I can realize Krishna's identity. Otherwise, it becomes very shallow, or it becomes very theoretical. We say we shouldn't have any fear. But a small incident and immediately, screaming in fear. And therefore, Prabhupada often said it is not an armchair philosophy. We need to be serious, to apply and practice the process diligently, seriously, sincerely, so that we can get these realizations. It's not going to come, oh, I picked up my bead bag, I'm getting it. No. I'm doing some devotional service, I'm getting it. No. It really comes from serious commitment, dedication, because Prabhupada said Krishna is not cheap. Even though by Prabhupada's mercy, Krishna consciousness has spread throughout the world and he's accessible. Knowledge about him is accessible, but he is not accessible directly. He is not cheap. You need to pay the price. Putting tilak, kantimala, chanting Hare Krishna, taking some prasad does not qualify one to realize Krishna, to go back to the spiritual world. Yes, it's a step towards that, but it is not the end. It is the beginning of the journey so that one can become more and more and more serious. So yes, no shortcuts, no bribing. You can think there's a shortcut and you can try to bribe, but you're getting nowhere. Bhavana Prabhu says, what amount of fear we should fear really for anything that's yet to come compared to the hardship we are experiencing right now? And we are carrying ourselves already. What's to wait for? So it's a relative question, relative to each individual, relative to each one's realization, and relative to Krishna's, relative to one's relationship with Krishna. The main thing is, and that is why, it's an important question, that is why never measure yourself with anybody else. Never measure yourself with Dhruva Maharaj, with Prahlad Maharaj, with Prabhupada. You should only measure yourself relative to yourself, not with anybody else. Yes, we can learn from everyone else, but we're learning from them how we should apply ourselves, but we measure ourselves relative to ourselves. So if I take my situation right now, I know genuinely to what degree I feel fear and to what degree I need to make arrangements for that fear. In some cases, for example, somebody may break into our home and point a gun at me. I may experience fear, but at the same time, I may also, in that fear, surrender to Krishna. Know that I need to chant Hare Krishna. Know that I just need to depend on Krishna, even though I'm fearing. See, that is not abnormal. That is not abnormal. If there's zero fear, that means pure devotee. So yes, we can experience fear. The main thing is we should use fear as a barometer for progress. And keep moving until that reality, that field, that spiritual platform where I will experience zero anxiety, zero fear, Vaikunta. That is our goal. And no matter how much fear I feel right now is irrelevant. Why? Because we're on the right path. That itself is such an amazing achievement. This morning I was also discussing with Madhuri Maraji, Madhuri Dasi, that consider we know we're not this body. And therefore, when we get old, our consciousness is of a different level, different perspective. Whereas those who think they're this body, their anxiety is traumatic because they identifying with this body. The body is old and wrecked and weak, and they have all these thoughts. Oh, I will not be able to do this. I'll not be able to do this. This is the situation. Ivan says, the soul does not experience fear. Does fear as an emotion emanate from the mind and ego? Yes. The soul does not experience fear. But because of false ego, because of false identification, because the soul is now identifying itself with this body, due to the false ego, we experience fear. Otherwise, the soul has no need for fear to experience fear. We covered last week or the week before that the soul can never be cut, never be withered, never be dried, never be wet, never be burnt, never be killed by any weapon. So if that is the nature of you, Prabhupada says the soul is like 100 million suns, brilliant. If that is me, why am I going through this trauma? It's because of false identification, false ego. So therefore, by chanting Hare Krishna, we dissolve that false ego. And when that false ego is dissolved, this is the greatest achievement, greatest blessing. Tomorrow we're celebrating the appearance of Advaita Acharya. Advaita Acharya, through the agency of Shambhu, Sadashiva, his blessing removes also that false ego, that false identification that causes these issues. Ravana says, it's because I've heard it with fear, and I care so less at this point with what's to come. All my life has come down to be of the here and now. Even death I see it as present and not in any other time. Yes, so it's good to live in the present, because that also reduces the past and the future and the anxiety that's related to what I should have done and what I need to do. So that is good, to live in the present and just have faith that whatever I'm going through is under Krishna's full control. And therefore, all I need to do is just have faith in Krishna and try to be Krishna conscious at this point in time, and let future handle itself under Krishna's care. Whatever Krishna wants to send my way, so be it. I accept it and I keep. Here's the thing. No matter what the future holds, the good, the bad, the ugly, it doesn't matter. I will never give up Krishna consciousness under any circumstances. That is how we should see the future. Whether there's World War III or whether there's end of the world, no problem. Chant Hare Krishna. As Prabhupada says, chant Hare Krishna and be happy. So like that, now, yes, easier said, right, than done. Because tomorrow there's going to be a situation and I'm panicking and I'm trying to find ways and I'm trying to do and make arrangements. No problem. Nobody said you should be inactive and be dull like a tree. I will make arrangements and I will do the needful, and I may be fearful and I'll have anxiety, no problem. But under every circumstance, I am convinced beyond doubt that I will not leave this path of Krishna consciousness. Come hell or high water, I ain't leaving Krishna, because I'm convinced who I am and who Krishna is. That conviction by Prabhupada's mercy has been there. Therefore, I will never ever leave Krishna consciousness. The world can go south, the movement can go south, the leaders can go south or west or north or wherever. It doesn't matter. We have been given a spotless, a pure, a pristine process and the knowledge connected to that process. And that is what we should be attached to. Not sentimentally be attached to the movement, not sentimentally be attached to the leaders, because the leaders can be fallible, the followers can be fallible, but the process, the wisdom, and ultimately Srila Prabhupada will always be there to guide. Okay. Mother says, Hare Krishna. Such sublime talks between devotees of Krishna, such a good example of how we must endeavor to be. Perfect questions and waiting eagerly for perfect answers. By Prabhupada's mercy, he has given us perfect questions, perfect answers. Ray Prabhu says, Hare Krishna, it's not what you do, it's how you do. It's not when you do, but for whom you do is important. Exactly. And therefore, how you do it, so Krishna is pleased. For whom you do it, so Krishna and his devotees are pleased. So, yes, there are things that we cannot do, and the Prabhupada said you shouldn't do. Okay, so we shouldn't leave that part. Just like somebody says, well, I can eat mushrooms. It's okay. I just eat mushrooms for Krishna. No, you can't eat mushrooms for Krishna. Why? Because Prabhupada said no mushrooms, right? So, yes, it's true. At the same time, we need to read the fine line, because there will be those that will take advantage of the fine line. The scriptures, Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra have given us what we can and cannot do. What that can and cannot do, we need to apply the proper mood of how those activities are performed and for whom we are actually doing those activities. That is why Prabhupada keeps on reminding us, when we're engaging in devotional service, try to remember who you're doing that service for. Don't just blindly, mechanically do that service, and also don't do that service and be speaking prajalpa, because then it defeats the whole purpose. Then it means you are mechanical, you're not getting the desired result. You could be cooking the Sunday feast every single week and not be making advancement. And then you're wondering, like, what's happening? I'm doing devotional service every week. I do it. I can be chanting Hare Krishna every single day, and still my mind is on prajalpa. And if your mind is on prajalpa, then that is mechanical service. That is mechanical chanting. You're not going to get the desired result. In fact, you may be increasing your material desires due to the offense. So therefore, we need to be checked. Therefore, we need to have good association that can point, that can direct, that can detect, and put us on the right track. Thank you very much for everyone's feedback and questions. Let's start to the session. All right, so now, manifestation of Brahma from Garbhodaksai Vishnu, covering verses 1 to 9, the cyclic succession of Srimad Bhagavatam, and then 10 to 14, the reawakening of creation. Text 1. Maitra Vacham Satsevaniyo Patapurupam Pamso Yallo Kapalo Bhagavat Pradhanam Abu Vite Ajita Kirtimalam Pade Padenu Tanya Yasya Abhikshanam. The great sage Maitreya Muni said to Vidura, the royal dynasty of King Puru is worthy to serve the pure devotees, because all the dynasties of that family are devoted to the personality of Godhead, who are also born in that. You are also born in that family, and it is wonderful that because of your attempt, the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are becoming newer and newer at every moment. Here's a wonderful example of how something related, something connected to Krishna is auspicious, is all auspicious. Any family member that's connected to Krishna is auspicious. Now, we may have been connected to families that weren't devotees, and now we are wonderfully connected to Achyuta Gotra. By Prabhupada's mercy, we are connected to Krishna's family. Therefore, auspicious. And for those who are connected, for those who are Krishna conscious, what is the experience of hearing and glorifying Krishna? The pastimes of Krishna become newer and newer at every moment. Powerful. Just consider, we hear, or every year we celebrate every major festival of Krishna. Like if one is, say, 30 years in Krishna consciousness, then we've celebrated 30 years or 30 Advaita Acharya appearance days, 30 Janmastamis, 30 Gorpunims, etc. Every single year. You could celebrate a festival, let's say Janmastami, every single month. You could celebrate Janmastami every single week. Okay? Every single day. Okay? Every single hour and second, and even every hour or every moment. Now, if you celebrating Janmastami every single moment, by Krishna's mercy, he'll expand that moment so it becomes a little more substantial in terms of celebrating. And let's say Krishna expands that moment so that you can celebrate his appearance day. And you are celebrating Janmastami every single moment. Materially, what may come into your consciousness is, I just celebrated that just a moment ago. I mean, I just heard that pastime a moment ago. And materially, they may be the experience of boredom. Maitreya Muni, an exalted pure soul, pure devotee of the Lord, is saying, it's becoming newer and newer at every moment. That means Krishna conscious. That means well connected. As soon as we experience the dryness, the hackneyed, the boredom, sleep, tiredness even, it means I have a way to go. I have a long way to go. No problem. Again, no problem. It's a sign. Don't think you're pure devotee. I made it. No. I like to give that pastime when I think it was in Australia. Prabhupada wasn't staying in a temple, he was staying away from the temple. There was a place that the devotees had rented. So Prabhupada, would come for the morning program and have darshan, etc. So Prabhupada had a morning program, then there was like afternoon class, evening class. So the devotees came for the evening class. And Prabhupada started to give the talk. And the talk was about hearing and chanting the glories of Krishna 24 hours a day, non-stop. And Prabhupada started to talk and talk and talk. And it started getting later and later and later. It's like 9 o'clock, and Prabhupada is talking and talking. And the sannyasis are there and devotees are there, and you can see the dandas are slowly going like this. So Prabhupada noticed the dandas were going like this. The devotees are going like this. So then Prabhupada said, okay, can go back to the temple. So they was just too happy. So they got up and they went to the temple. Whew, that was austere. The servant who was serving Prabhupada in the house, he offered obeisance and were ready to go. Prabhupada said, where are you going? Where are you going? You ain't going anywhere. You sit. So he had to sit. And Prabhupada did not go back to his room. Prabhupada kept on speaking about Krishna. And sure enough, the servant was trying to keep awake, but the eyelids, they become very heavy as night progresses. And Prabhupada kept on speaking, and eventually it was so late that the devotee just fell out asleep. And Prabhupada kept on speaking about Krishna. The next morning, the devotees came to see Srila Prabhupada for like japa. So when the devotees came, they saw Prabhupada on the Vyasasana still speaking, and the devotee was out for the count. So Prabhupada practically demonstrated this new and new at every moment that when you are seriously Krishna conscious, Krishna's glories will never be dry, boring, but we will experience genuinely. See, it's, as Prabhupada says, it is not a superimposition on the mind. It's not like you have to motivate yourself. This is beautiful. This is wonderful. This is new and new at every moment. I'm experiencing new and new. No. It's not a superimposition. You don't need to do that. It's a genuine experience when you are genuinely Krishna conscious. So we can use this also as a measurement, as a barometer of how much am I attached to Krishna, and take advantage of that to become serious. Prabhupada's purport. The great sage Maitreya thanked Vidura and praised him by reference to his family glories. The Puru dynasty was full of devotees of the personality of Godhead, and was therefore glorious, because they were not attached to impersonal Brahman or to the localized Paramatma, but they were directly attached to Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. They were worthy to render service to the Lord and his pure devotees. Because Vidura was one of the descendants of that family, naturally he engaged in spreading wide the ever new glories of the Lord. Maitreya felt happy to have such glorious company as Vidura. He considered the company of Vidura most desirable because such association can accelerate one's dormant propensities for devotional service. So Maitreya Muni is very grateful to have Vidura's inquiries, Vidura's association. Like that, we should also be very grateful for the association that we can get that is Krishna conscious. And with that gratitude, we should understand why that is beneficial, because, as Prabhupada says, it's most desirable association that can accelerate one's dormant propensities for devotional service. We seek that association that can keep us in the fire of Krishna consciousness, because we need to revive our dormant love and propensity for serving Krishna. And good association is key for reviving that dormant love, that dormant desire for serving. Bad association can hinder, can block, can dampen, can cover that same desire for service. Text 2. Soham nrinam shu lakshukya dukkam mahad gatanam viramaya tasya pravartaye bhagavatam puranam yad aha sakshad bhagavan rishibhya. Let me now begin speaking on the Bhagavad Puran, which was directly spoken to the great sages by the personality of Godhead for the benefit of those who are entangled in the extreme miseries for the sake of very little pleasure. So now Maitra Muni says, I'm going to speak the Bhagavad Puran. All your questions that you have asked, they're all there in the Bhagavad Puran, and I'm going to repeat the same Bhagavad Puran that the Lord himself spoke to the sages. And this knowledge is beneficial for who? For those who are entangled in extreme miseries. They are entangled in extreme miseries. Why? For some very little pleasure. In this material world, there is more misery than pleasure. We give the example of how you can cause so much pain to your thumb and very little way you can enjoy through your thumb. So this world is designed like that. Purport. The sage Maitra proposed to speak on Srimad Bhagavatam because it was especially compiled and traditionally comes down in the discipline succession for the solution of all the problems of humanity, of human society. Are we convinced that Srimad Bhagavatam is the solution to all our problems? And Srimad Bhagavatam is also the solution to all the problems of human society. Prabhupada is not saying this just for some pages. This is genuinely the position of Srimad Bhagavatam. Why? Well, firstly, because Srimad Bhagavatam is Krishna himself, and Krishna is the solution to all problems. But the knowledge that is there in the Bhagavatam is really there to solve all our problems, which means if I can mold my life to live according to Srimad Bhagavatam, I have practically, literally, seriously, genuinely solved all the problems in my life. Who out there, which politician, motivational speaker, educator, or anyone else who does not have the Bhagavatam can boldly, genuinely proclaim that we have the solution that can solve all, not one, not two, not three, not half a dozen, all the problems, not of some group, some generation, some living entities, no, of all human society. Only Prabhupada, only those who have the Bhagavatam, only those who come in the cyclic succession of this glorious wisdom can say that. And because we are connected to this glorious wisdom, we can also say that by the mercy of the Bhagavatam, all our problems can be solved. Now, if all our problems can be solved by the Bhagavatam, then shouldn't we be spending more and more and more and more time with the Bhagavatam? Only one who is fortunate, Prabhupada continues, can have the opportunity to hear Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of pure devotees of the Lord. Only one who is fortunate. Under the spell of material energy, the living entities are entrapped in the bondage of many difficulties simply for the sake of a little bit of material happiness. One devotee was saying he took his kids to Disneyland, and he's saying that it's like you standing there in queues like 1.5 hours. You're standing in queue to go through some sort of Disneyland enjoyment arrangement. You stand for 1.5 hours you then finally get to enjoy that arrangement, and it takes few seconds before that arrangement is finished. Like you wonder, like really, like I've been standing there for like 1.5 hours, and the happiness just like are we finished? Serious? Yeah, serious. This is the material world. The happiness is very flickering, chanchala. Yet we spend so much energy just to get this flickering happiness. There is no endurance in this material world. Everything in this material world dwindles. You have an apple, that apple is going to dwindle. You have a body, that body is going to dwindle. Everything is designed to dwindle. The Bhagavatam is immortal. The Bhagavatam is the perfect remedy for us. They engage in fruitive activities, not knowing the implications, under the false impression that the body is the self, the living entities, foolishly relate to so many false attachments. They think that they can engage with materialistic paraphernalia forever. This gross misconception of life is so strong that a person suffers continually, life after life, under the external energy of the Lord. If one comes in contact with the book Bhagavatam, as well as with the devotee Bhagavat, who knows what the Bhagavatam is, then such a fortunate man gets out of material entanglement. Therefore, Sri Maitri Muni, out of compassion for the suffering men in the world, proposes to speak on the Srimad Bhagavatam first and last. Such a powerful conclusion. Please first speak about the Bhagavatam. Then we'll get to some other Gramya Katha, some other topics. No. Prabhupada is saying, Maitri Muni proposes to speak on the Srimad Bhagavatam first and last. First, throughout, and at the end. It's the Bhagavatam in the beginning, it's the Bhagavatam throughout, and it's the Bhagavatam at the end. This should be our motto. This should be our goal. It's chanting Hare Krishna at the beginning, it's chanting Hare Krishna in the middle, and it's chanting Hare Krishna in the end. It's Krishna in the beginning, it's Krishna in the middle, it's Krishna in the end. It's Krishna Prasad in the beginning, it's Krishna Prasad in the middle, and it's Krishna Prasad at the end. We should have no in-betweens, no before, no after. This should be our motto. This should be our vision. This should be our goal. This should be our destination. So very wonderful. Bhagavatam first and last. Why? Because the Bhagavatam is the cream. It's the essence. It's the Amala Puran. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give the process of Krishna consciousness and how to practice devotional service. And what was the evidence that he based his mission, his movement on? Srimad Bhagavatam. And how wonderful. We have Srimad Bhagavatam. By Prabhupada's efforts, by Prabhupada's endeavor, by Prabhupada's sacrifice, and those that assisted Srila Prabhupada, we have this amazing, glorious scripture. We're waiting for a jackpot. This is the jackpot. We're waiting to be multi-billionaires. This is the multi-billionaire end result. We're waiting to go to the spiritual world. This is the spiritual world in the form of Grantaraj. Everything is there. We just need to associate. We just need to drink. We just need to connect with this amazing gift that Srila Prabhupada has left us. So do not, sometimes we may say, yeah, my life is a misery, or my life is this, or my life is unfortunate, or I don't have this, I don't have this, I don't have this. You have the Bhagavatam. There are people in this world that have so much wealth and opulence and facility, far more than anyone could even comprehend. Yet, they don't have the Bhagavatam. They could be multi-trillionaires, and they don't have the Bhagavatam. There are people in this world that have beauty, that have fame, that have health beyond people's wildest dreams. But they don't have the Bhagavatam. They are all poor. They are all unfortunate. And we may be living meagerly, struggling, surviving, carrying on, struggling Krishna consciousness. But we have the Bhagavatam. We have the solution. We have Krishna. We have Bhaktivedanta purports. What more can we ask for? We need to realize our good fortune. It's beyond comparison. It's beyond even Krishna. Even Lord Krishna is trying to comprehend the good fortune that Srila Prabhupada had created for the living entities. It's inconceivable. What Prabhupada had to go through to give us. What did Prabhupada take to the West? Srimad Bhagavatam. 3 parts of the first canto. He didn't take anything else. Srimad Bhagavatam. The trunk of books that Prabhupada took. Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada was leaving this world. What was he dictating on? Srimad Bhagavatam. So, yes, we are fortunate. X3. Asinam urvyam bhagavatam adyam sankarshanam devam akunta sattvam vivitsavastatvam ataparasya kumara mukhya munayon paprichyan. Some time ago, been inquisitive to know Sanat Kumar, the chief of the boy saints, accompanied by other great sages, inquired exactly like you about the truths regarding Vasudeva, the Supreme, from Lord Sankarshan, who is seated at the bottom of the universe. Purport. This is in clarification of the statement that the Lord spoke directly on Srimad Bhagavatam. When and unto whom the Bhagavatam was spoken is explained herewith. Questions similar to those put forward by Vidura were asked by great sages like Sanat Kumar and Lord Sankarshan, and the plenary expansion of the Supreme Lord Vasudeva answered them. So the Bhagavatam is not only what we have received, spoken by Sukadeva Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit. The Bhagavatam was spoken by the Lord to Brahma. It's spoken by Anantashesh Sankarshan to Sanat Kumar and the sages. There are many versions, or not versions, but many narrations of the Bhagavatam. It's also explained as Bhagavatam in the heavenly in Brahma Loka, which are far more larger in content. The knowledge contained in the Bhagavatam is consistent, but the scenario and situation of when and to whom and by who it was spoken may vary. And the knowledge that is contained in the Bhagavatam is eternal truth. It doesn't change. It's given at the time of creation. It survives through creation. And it is eternally always there. Consider, we have gone through 150 trillion years, at least, of this universe. And even though the creation has gone through 150 trillion years, that Bhagavatam that was spoken by the Lord to Lord Brahma, that same knowledge we have in our hands. Spotless Quran, spotless wisdom, spotless knowledge. Second verse says, by kicking out all Ketava religion, by kicking out all cheating philosophy, cheating principles, cheating religion. This is the purity of the Bhagavatam. That is why the only truth that is surviving in Kali Yuga is the Bhagavatam, the ultimate truth. And that is also why Srila Bhaktisarada Maharaj told Srila Prabhupada, write books. Why? Because now in the form of books, this knowledge will survive generations. Text 4. Sum eva dishnyam bahu manayantam yadva sudeva bidam amananti pratyag drishtak sambuja poshami sad unmila yantam vibudaya. At that time, Lord Sankarshan was meditating on his Supreme Lord, whom the learned esteem as Lord Vasudeva. But for the sake of advancement of the great learned sages, he slightly opened his lotus-like eyes and began to speak. 5. Swardun yadudar Swadun Yudardre Swajata Kalapati Kalapair Upash Prishantas Charanopadanam Vadmam Yad Archantyahi Rajakanya Sapremanana Balibi Vavarta. The sages came from the highest planets down to the lowest region through the water of the Ganges, and therefore the hair on their heads was wet. They touched the lotus feet of the Lord, which was worshipped with various paraphernalia by the daughters of the serpent king when they desire good husbands. Purport. The Ganges water flows directly from the lotus feet of Vishnu, and its course runs from the highest planet of the universe down to the lowest. The sages came down from Satya Loka by taking advantage of the flowing water a process of transportation made possible by the power of mystic yoga. If a river flows thousands and thousands of miles, a perfect yogi can at once transport himself from one place to another simply by dipping in its water. In the Kumbh Mela, you find if you were to meet some of the sages at Kumbh Mela festival and you ask them, how did you come? Where you came from? Oh, I came from right up from the Himalayas. Huh? How did you come from there? Very simple. There's a river flowing from the Himalayas. As soon as they jump in, they can appear in another part of the river. This is the mystic powers the yogis have. If a river flows thousands and thousands of miles, a perfect yogi can at once transport himself from one place to another simply by dipping in its waters. The Ganges is the only celestial river which flows throughout the universe, and great sages travel all over the universe via the sacred river. Let's see if the scientists can resolve and find how this works. It's beyond their comprehension. The statement that they have was wet indicates that it was directly moistened by the water originated from the lotus feet of Vishnu, the Ganges. Whoever touches the water of the Ganges to his head surely touches the lotus feet of the Lord directly and can become free from all effects of sinful acts. And again, this requires faith. You can touch the waters from the Ganges with zero faith and you may not get the result. Faith is key. Trust. Faith is described as trust in something sublime. Something you may not be able to explain, but you have trust in it. You trust the process. You trust Krishna. You trust Prabhupada. You trust the Bhagavatam. You trust the Ganges. And therefore, because you have trust, you're able to follow through. Whoever touches, yes. If after taking bath in the Ganges or being washed of all sins, a man guards himself against committing further sinful acts, then certainly he is delivered. But if he again takes up sinful activities, he bathes in the Ganges, his bathe in the Ganges is as good as that of an elephant who nicely takes his bath in a river, but later spoils the whole thing by covering himself with dust on the land. Srila Prabhupada also warned us, you can commit a mistake. Once, it's okay. Twice, it's okay. 3 times, you get booted after that. So making mistakes is not a problem. It's to repeat the mistakes. That is the problem. The mistakes that I've done, the mistakes that I've performed in my past, that's not a problem. If you surrender to Krishna, Krishna says, I will forgive you. Masucha, do not worry. I'll forgive you for all sinful activities. Don't worry. Don't have fear. But the main thing is do not repeat, do not commit them again. Because then you will not be redeemed. That is the 7th offense to the holy name, to commit sinful activities in the strength of chanting the holy names of the Lord. It's okay, I'll just go do some nonsense and chant Hare Krishna. With that attitude, you will not be redeemed even after going to Yamaraj. So we have to be very careful. We need to learn. We need to follow. And yes, if there's unintentional slipping, no problem. Prabhupada and Krishna are not robots. They have a heart. They'll understand. But intentionally, we should be very careful. That. 6. Muhur grinanto vachasanuraga skalat padena syakritani tajna kirita sahasha mani praveka pradyoti dodam fana sahasram. The four Kumaras, headed by Sanat Kumar, who all knew the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, glorified the Lord in rhythmic ascent with selected words full of affection and love. At that time, Lord Sankarshan, with his thousands of raised hoots, began to radiate an effulgence from the glowing stones on his head. The Lord is sometimes addressed as Uttamasloka, which means one who is worshipped with selected words by devotees. A profusion of such selected words come from a devotee who is fully absorbed in affection and love for devotional service of the Lord. There are many instances in which even a small boy who was a great devotee of the Lord could offer excellent prayers in the choicest words for glorification of the pastimes of the Lord. In other words, without the development of fine affection and love, one cannot offer prayers to the Lord very suitably. Here is something else we need to strive for: love and affection. This is what Krishna is looking for: our heart, our love and affection for him. And by practicing the process that Srila Prabhupada has given us, slowly, gradually, this love and affection, this attachment to Krishna will manifest more and more and more. And when this love and affection is there, naturally, we will be able to offer suitable prayers. Text 7. Proktam kileta bhagavatamena nivriti dharma viratayatena sanat kumaraya sa chaha prishta sankhya yana yangadrita vritaya. Lord Sankarshan thus spoke the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam to the great sage Sanat Kumar, who had already taken the vow of renunciation. Sanat Kumar also, in his turn, when inquired by Sankhya Yana Muni, explained Srimad Bhagavatam as he had heard it from Sankarshan. Purport. This is the way of the Parampara system. Although Sanat Kumar, the well-known great saintly Kumara, was in the perfect stage of life, still he heard the message of Srimad Bhagavatam from Lord Sankarshan. Similarly, when he was questioned by Sankhya Yana Rishi, he spoke to him the same message he had heard from Lord Sankarshan. In other words, unless one hears from the proper authority, one cannot become a preacher. In devotional service, therefore, 2 items out of 9, namely hearing and chanting, are most important. Without hearing nicely, one cannot preach the message of Vedic knowledge. So, just as Sanat Kumar heard from Sankarshan and then was able to repeat the same message to Sankhya Yana Rishi, we also are hearing from Srila Prabhupada, who was coming in a bona fide disciplic succession, and therefore we can repeat the same message. And because we can repeat the same message, this is the perfection of preaching. Prabhupada said, one time they asked Prabhupada how to become a good preacher. Prabhupada said, cramp my purports. So we just need to try to memorize, try to learn, try to repeat Prabhupada's purports. That's all. And if you do this, this is perfect preaching. 8. Sankhya paramham sya mukhyo vivakshamo ya bhagavad vibhuti jagadas sosmad guraven vidya ya para sarayatha brihaspatescha the great sage Sankhya was the chief amongst the transcendentalists. And when he was describing the glories of the Lord in terms of Srimad Bhagavatam, it so happened that my spiritual master Parasar and Brihaspati both heard him. 9. Provachamayam Sadalayurvukto Muni Pulastena Puranamadhyam Yoham Tatvaitat Kathayami Vatsyam Shraddha Lave Nityam Anuvrattayam. The great sage Parasar, as aforementioned, being so advised by the great sage Pulastya, spoke unto me the foremost of the Puranas, Bhagavatam. I shall also describe this before you, my dear son, in terms of my hearing, because you are always my faithful follower. Purport. The great sage name of the name Pulastya is the father of the demonic descendants. Once upon a time, Parasar began a sacrifice in which all the demons were to be burnt to death because his father had been killed and devoured by one of them. The great sage Vashishta Muni arrived at the sacrifice and requested Parasar to stop the deadly action. And because of Vashishta's position and respect in the community of sages, Parasar could not deny the request. Parasar having stopped the sacrifice, Pulastya, the father of the demons, appreciated his Brahmanical temperament and gave the blessing that in future he would be a great speaker of the Vedic literatures called the Puranas, the supplements of the Vedas. Parasar's action was appreciated by Pulastya because Parasar had forgiven the demons out of his Brahmanical power of forgetfulness. Parasar was able to demolish all the demons in the sacrifice. But he considered demons are so made that they devour living creatures, men and animal. But why on that account should I withdraw my Brahmanical qualification of forgiveness? As the great speaker of the Puran, Parasar first of all spoke on the Srimad Bhagavatam Puran because it is the foremost of all Puranas. Maitra Muni desired to narrate the same Bhagavatam to Bhagavatam he had heard from Parasar, and Vidura was qualified to hear it because of his faithfulness and his following the instructions received from his superiors. So Srimad Bhagavatam was being narrated from time immemorial by the disciplic succession, even before the time of Vyasadeva. The so-called historians calculate the Puranas to be only a few hundred years old, but factually the Puranas existed from time immemorial, before all historical calculations by the mundanous and speculative philosophers. This is why our faith in the Bhagavatam should be first and foremost. If we read something in the Bhagavatam and we find that the scientists are able to verify and validate that, we accept. If we read something in the Bhagavatam and the scientists are not able to come to a conclusion, they're not able to verify that fact, we don't accept them. We only accept the truth of the Bhagavatam. Why? Because it is immortal truth. We are not studying, reading, exposed to some mundane, man-made philosophy, truth about creation. No. It's coming directly from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the blueprint. And this knowledge doesn't change. What we are hearing, what we are exposing ourselves is knowledge that is eternal. It is immortal. Now, why is this so beneficial? We have three qualities as the soul: Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Sat means eternality. Chit means knowledge. Ananda means bliss. Now, Sat, Chit, Ananda. What's in the middle? Chit, knowledge. When you expose or come in contact with chit, with knowledge that is immortal, that is pure, that is perfect, that's untainted, that's spotless, which is Srimad Bhagavatam, and you associate regularly Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya with that knowledge, which is timeless, which is immortal, which is eternal, which is full of bliss, what happens? When you associate sufficiently with that knowledge, Chit and Ananda gets impacted. That means if you associate sufficiently with the knowledge of the Bhagavatam, you begin to realize your Chit nature. You will begin to experience Ananda. When you perfectly associate with Chit from the Bhagavatam, 24 hours a day, non-stop, you will fully realize your eternal nature and fully be immersed in the ocean of Ananda. Therefore, this knowledge is crucial, is key, is a necessity. It's not an option. It's not, should I? It's a must. Just like nobody asks, should I breathe? It's okay. I don't need it. Yeah. Stop breathing and see what happens. It's a necessity. It's a must. So associating with the Bhagavatam regularly is a must. It's not an option. 10. Uda plutam vishvam idam tadasid hannidraya mali tadrin drin yamil layat ahindrataple dishayane eka kritsha naswatam ratoni riha. At that time, when the three worlds were submerged in water, Garbhadaksai Vishnu was alone lying on his bedstead, the great snake Ananta. And although he appeared to be in slumber, in his own internal potency, free from the action of the external energy, his eyes were not completely closed. Purport. The Lord is eternally enjoying transcendental bliss by his internal potency, whereas the external energy is suspended during the time of the dissolution of the cosmic manifestation. So when Mahavishnu is lying in his slumber, he's not like he's fast asleep and he's in Tamagun. No. The Lord never goes into Tamagun. He's always on the Sudasattva platform. So when the Lord is lying on the causal ocean, he is actually engaging in pastimes beyond our comprehension. All through his internal potencies, the Lord is enjoying pastimes. 11. Sonta sharirer pitabhuta sukshma kalat vikam saktim udirayana uvasatasmin salile padeswe Yatana lodaro niruda virya. Just like the strength of the fire within fuel wood, the Lord remained within the water of dissolution, submerging all the living entities in their subtle bodies. He lay in the self-invigorated energy called color. Purport. After the three worlds, the upper, lower, middle planetary systems merge into the water of dissolution. The living entities of all the three worlds remain in their subtle bodies by dint of the energy called color. In this dissolution, the gross bodies become unmanifest, but the subtle bodies existed, just like the water of the material creation. Thus, the material energy was not completely wound up, as is the case in the full dissolution of the material world. So we have minor and major destruction. So in the minor destruction, because the universes are in the stem, at the lotus stem, the ocean waters the Garbha ocean rises and submerges all the planets in this water of dissolution. But the living entities, their gross body is destroyed, but their subtle body still exists. That is how all your past samskaras and impressions are intact. So that when Brahma, so this generally happens Brahma's night, Brahma wakes up in the morning. When he wakes up in the morning, he's got some work to do. He recreates. So now when he recreates and the living entities come back into existence, they simply continue from where they left off, due to the subtle body, mind, intelligence, and ego still being intact. And that is why the process of Krishna consciousness, it's really about dissolving, purifying the subtle body. Once the subtle body is purified, you become liberated. 12. Chatur yuganam cha sahasram apsu swapan swayo diritaya swapshakyam kalakyaya sadita karma tantro lokanapitam dadrishe swadehe. The Lord lay down for 1,000 cycles of the 4 yugas in his internal potency, and by his external energy he appeared to be sleeping within the water. When the living entities are coming out for further development of their fruitive activities, actuated by the energy called Kala Shakti, he saw his transcendental body as bluish. So 1,000 cycles of the 4 yugas is one night of Brahma. Therefore, I mentioned that the destruction happens over a period of the night of Brahma, and creation happens over a day of Brahma. So therefore, there's 1,000 cycles of the 4 yugas, one night of Brahma, and 1,000 cycles of the 4 yugas, one day of Brahma. So that's your day and night of Brahma. 2,000 cycles of the 4 yugas. Purport. In the Vishnu Puran, Kala Shakti is mentioned as avidya. The symptom of the influence of the Kala Shakti is that one has to work in the material world for fruitive activities. The fruitive workers are described in Bhagavad Gita as mudas, or foolish. Such foolish living entities are very enthusiastic to work for some temporary benefit within perpetual bondage. One thinks himself very clever throughout his life if he is able to leave behind him a great asset of wealth for his children and to achieve this temporary benefit, to take the risk of all sinful activities without knowledge that such activities will keep him perpetually bound by the shackles of material bondage. Due to this polluted mentality and due to material sins, the aggregate combination of living entities appear to be bluish. Such an impetus of activities for fruitive results is made possible by the dictation of the external energy of the Lord Kala. So this Kala Shakti, which is one of the energies that is there and facilitates the material creation, is also known as avidya. And the symptom of this Kala Shakti, this influence of time, is that one is covered by the ignorance of avidya. And this avidya is what propels living entities to work for fruitive results. Again and again and again, foolishly. The root cause is ignorance. So the Lord's energies, they are facilitating the perverted desires of the living entity who wants to stay in the material world perpetually, exploiting the resources under ignorance. This is all managed or all facilitated by Kala Shakti. When one surrenders to Srila Prabhupada, when one surrenders to the pure devotee, when one surrenders to the Bhagavatam, then one becomes free from avidya. When you become free from avidya, you become free from the Kala Shakti, from time, the influence of time. And that means one becomes liberated, even while one is in this material body, Jivan Mukta. So this is how one, by the power of transcendental knowledge, becomes completely liberated. 13. Tasyartha sukshma binivishta drishter antor gatorato rajasatan taniyam gunena kalano gatena vidya shusyam tadabi yata nabideshta deshat. The subtle subject matter of creation on which the Lord's attention was fixed was agitated by the material mode of passion, and thus the subtle form of creation pierced through his abdomen. 14. Sapadmakosha sahashodadishtat kale na karma pratibodaneya nena swarochisha tat shalilam vishalam vidyota yan arkavim arka ivatmayoni. Piercing through this sum total form of fruitive activities of the living entities took the shape of the bud of a lotus flower generated from the personality of Vishnu, and by his supreme will it illuminated everything like the sun and dried up the vast waters of devastation. So we are now hearing the scientific process of creation. This is not a big bang. This is science. Science that can be validated. Somebody says, oh, this is creation. How do you know it like that? Well, you follow the process, you become perfect, and then you tell Krishna, Krishna, I just want to see the creation. Sure, no problem. And you will see this exactly to the T. So all the fruit of this, the subtle, the living entities in Mahavishnu, in the subtle body, with their subtle body. And all that combination of the fruitive activities manifests a lotus flower, bud and a lotus flower that manifests. And while this is happening and the lotus flower is generated from the Supreme Lord, it begins to illumine so brilliantly that, like a sun, that it dries up the vast waters that have inundated the universe. And this is how the creation has now freedom from water so that creation can take place. The half of the ocean always stays with water. And then from this lotus, we're going to hear the first, it's described that the most pious living entity that is there in Mahavishnu's body in this specific universe shoots up and becomes Brahma. And then he creates all the other living entities then through the agency of Durga, are pushed into different parts of the universe, ready to take birth again in this universe. And thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of, or rather, thus ends this few verses that we started in chapter 8, which we will continue not next week, the following week, because next week is appearance of Lord Nityananda. We will continue the following week. Vantarat Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Go Pramanande, Hari Hari Bol. Any questions, comments in regards to what we have covered? Ivan says, how does Satchit Ananda practically relate to the path of spiritual advancement? So Satchit Ananda is the nature, quality of the soul. It's what you are made up of. It's your identity. Conscious Satchit Ananda Vigraha. You are a being, a spiritual being that have a spiritual form made up of Satchit Ananda. Right? You are a spiritual being, not made of blood, stool, urine, mucus, skin, bones. No. You are a spiritual being made of Sat Chit Ananda. That's your attributes. That's your nature. And because that's your nature, you are now able to revive that true nature, as we discussed, by associating with knowledge, which is of the same Satchidananda nature. You will revive your internality, and you will revive your bliss. Just like if I have an incense stick. So the incense stick is made up of fire. True or false? Is the incense stick made up of fire? True or false? Is the incense stick made up of fire? True or false? Anyone? True, true, true. Yes. Okay, next question. Where did the fire come from? Where did the fire come from? So you said there's fire there. Where did the fire? Who put the fire there? It's latent in the stick. Where did it come from? The earth. Where do you find fire? In the sun. The sun is fiery. So the fiery sun shines on the trees, and the trees absorb the fire and is able to keep the fire and transform the fire and keep the fire. When we take wood and make incense, you have wood. That wood is fiery, has fire in it because of the sun, and they take cow dung. They put the cow dung outside in the form of patties, let it dry, meaning sun heating the patties, fire is absorbed. They coat the stick with cow dung, making incense, which means that incense stick is actually fiery. Now there is fire already in that incense stick. How come the fire doesn't come out? If there's fire there, why doesn't it come out? And if I want the fire, what do I do? The potential of fire is there. It's not ignited. So I need to ignite that fire. There's potential, there is fire, but I need to ignite that fire. How do I ignite that fire? I take a match that has the ability where I can spark a fire, it flames, I create a spark, it then flames, it burns, it also has wood there, and I use that to light the incense, and it starts to burn. So match is used to ignite the fire that's already there. Similarly, the Bhagavatam, Krishna conscious knowledge, can be used to ignite the eternality and the bliss that is already there in the soul. I simply have to associate with such qualities. The more I associate with such qualities, the more my nature begins to get agitated, gets revived, agitated in a nice way. So this is how that knowledge can be revived. So your question was, how does Satchidana practically relate to the path of spiritual advancement? As you advance more in Krishna consciousness, following the process, associating with the wisdom, learning it, applying it, your Satchit Ananda nature will revive more and more and more. What will happen is you will become more and more detached from the gross and subtle body, and you become more attached to your identity of Satchit Ananda. You will realize more and more you're not this body, and you're not the mind, you're not gross and subtle body, and you will realize more and more that you're Satchidananda. When you perfect, which means you go from 0 to 100% in spiritual life. When you're 100% in spiritual life, you have fully realized you're not the gross body and you're not the subtle body, but you are Satchidananda spiritual being. That is how it relates. Shamanana Prabhu. Thanks, Prabhu Maharaji, for a nice class. Again, reminding us of Srimad Bhagavatam's position made accessible to us by Srila Prabhupada. Yes. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Rasaraj Prabhu, we learned today about fearlessness, association with devotees, and Srimad Bhagavatam's solution to all problems, taste for hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, perfect remedy, first and last to read, when association with chit knowledge and internal bliss. Yes, somebody studied. Vasaraj Prabhu, thank you. Yes. So we need to contemplate on these points, try to memorize some of these points, try to recollect some of these points, digest these points, and most importantly, contemplate on them. Throughout the week, think about them, contemplate. When you contemplate, you digest. It becomes part of your identity. And remember, the time we spend meditating, contemplating, assimilating this knowledge is never wasted. Why? Because this knowledge is eternal. And it's going to benefit you eternally. Therefore, learn it, study it, contemplate, remember it, recollect, and then share it. Whatever you have learned, whatever you have remembered, share it with others. Because this knowledge is rare. It's the truth. And it's the solution to all our problems. Mother Lash, Hare Krishna, thank you for the beautiful Krishna Katha. It's so interesting to hear about the son of Brahma, like Parasar and Pulastya sages. And the scientific process is so detailed and completely different from mundane Big Bang theory. I feel so fortunate to receive this information. Thank you. Yes. We are blessed. Just by hearing this knowledge gives us such power, that power that relieves anxiety, that power that gives us such faith, that power that gives us a taste, access to something which is beyond this material creation. When you live in the truth, you're guided by the truth. And that truth sets you free. This is the Bhagavatam. Fana, I now get it and appreciate the royal dynasty of King Puru. Vidura is born from that family, the same as the son of Queen Kunti. from that family line are devotees devoted to the personality of Godhead. Yes. Like Prabhupada was born also in a great dynasty. See? So these dynasties also, they have a certain culture, a certain energy that flows through them. Like Prabhupada is creating a certain generation. And those that are coming in this generation in future will be the guiding light for humanity. In like 1,000 generations from now, 100 generations from now, people will say, oh, yeah, you're coming in the generation of Bhakti Vedanta. How wonderful. And this generation is not just ceremonial. This generation is also in terms of shiksha, in terms of knowledge that's descending, that's going to go over generations and generations. And that will create humanity of a very high caliber of devotees of Krishna. Already we can see so many, all over the world, so many devotees from different cultures, creeds, religions, backgrounds, all chanting Hare Krishna. By Prabhupada's blessings and those that are preaching this message. So we are blessed, fortunate. Remember that, take full advantage, apply it in your life, and become perfect. Mother Les says, also wonderful and wondrous is Ganga Mother, from the highest to the lowest, and how she can be used for cleaning and mystic travel. Yes. And we also mentioned, right, that if you don't have Ganges water, because you should bathe every day in Ganges water, you can just say Ganga, 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 and their water becomes transformed into Mother Ganga. And you can get the blessings of bathing in Mother Ganga. So this is also how we can keep in touch. They are transcendental personalities there to facilitate our progress in spiritual life. Thank you very much. Hope you all have a wonderful festival. Tomorrow we will be in Senton speaking about the glories of Advaita Acharya and the relevance of Advaita Acharya in our life. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Go Pramanande Hari Hari Bo.